So it's going to be a two-part demo. You're going to both learn how to throw a bowl and to throw off the hump. Throwing off the hump is a really good technique for creating a lot of work fast, but it will take a little practice. Sorry. Okay. So when you're throwing off the hump, you actually don't have to center the whole thing. I'm going to just semi-center it so it doesn't bug me, but I'm actually just going to be centering the top. So the first little bowl that I made was made the same way. My clay is a little hard, so I'm going to sort of tower and smush it. So this is the point that I'm centering above. And it's just the same where I'm pushing the clay into my other hand rather than the wheel head. Okay, so when you're making a bowl, you're going to make that decision early because it's going to affect the bottom, the shape at the bottom. If you remember when we make the cylinders, your bottoms are flat, like a can of soup. But this is going to be concave. Wait, convex. Wait.
Cave, I think.
Concave. I always doubt myself.
I don't know.
So right from the beginning, I'm creating, and you were correct, a concave interior. So that's going to be my first difference between throwing a cylinder and throwing a bowl. Compressing the bottom is so important. If you don't compress the bottom, you can get S-cracks, but it'll be even more likely to happen when you're throwing off the hump like this because you don't have that wheel head to compress the clay against. So from here, it's kind of the same, but you're gonna see, I'm gonna make some decisions right from the get-go that have me heading outwards. So rather than going straight up and down, I need to establish the interior curve. With a bowl, the interior space is the most important. Your exterior shape should mirror that interior shape. So if they don't match, you're going to have extra weight and basically a bowl that feels odd, right? So I'm working up a slope. Instead of going straight up, I'm going out in like a 45-degree angle. Now the tricky thing is, if you get that angle going too far too fast, you're gonna have collapse. So, making a super flat bowl with a really wide rim may be more challenging than a simple ice cream bowl type of shape. to cut this one off the wheel, I use a piece of string. I establish where I want it to cut. And I line up the edge, and just when I have it where I want to, I'm going to drop the other end, and it is going to keep going faster because I went the wrong way. But it cut it off. And as soon as I unravel that guy, did I get you?
Nope.
Okay. As soon as I unravel it, I'm ready to go again. So you shouldn't have to unravel it, obviously, because you'll learn from my mistakes. And then you can do several without having to get more clay. And usually the last one I do is still pretty big. That's how I got the 2 bigger bowls. So as I stretch this out, the interior shape is already like this. I didn't go directly flat like I do with a cylinder. You know, talking too much with a mask on. Whew. So again, my hand, rather than going straight up, I'm already establishing the curve inside the bowl. One thing to consider, you want the curve to be continuous. Whatever the angle it's at, you don't want it to be bumping up and down. So one tool that I used early on was the old CDs they used to send in the mail all the time. I'd cut them apart and make ribs out of them because they had that perfect circle, but they don't have the right angle. So they actually end up taking off a lot of clay. They're too sharp, you know. But as I've grown as a potter, I can do more and more with just my hands alone. Somebody said at one point that the only tool that a potter needs is his hands or her hands and the water. Of course, I prefer to have a sponge too. So for the record, this cutting off technique is a lot easier when you have a typical wheel with a pedal because you can stop that faster. We'll see if I can do better this time. I won't edit it, I promise. I'll keep it in the video. All right. This time I'm ready to stop. Actually stopping. So I'm accustomed to a wheel that has a pedal versus the handhold because this is a handicap wheel. I spiraled a little bit. There you go. And then lastly, the last one's going to become one big one. Maybe. No matter how long you've been doing this, you will still have pots that fail. Even a master potter will have the occasional failure. They just become further and further apart. This one was the failure today. Proof is in the pudding. And the failure came after 2 successful pots. So it's not like it was just a warm-up. It just went wrong, which happens. So I know I've talked about anchoring your elbow a lot, but really watch what my body's doing. Not just my hands. I'm not just centering by doing this. It's never gonna go anywhere. I dig my elbow in and I lean in. This is a big piece of clay. It's gonna take muscle. I don't have all that much. Well, I guess I got plenty, but I need more sometimes, so I use my body. So taking the time to center completely is crucial to the success of the next steps. And you've seen it whenever one end of the pot grows taller than the other, or one side of the pot has a thicker wall than the other. Those are ways that not being centered enough can affect the pot. Also, this step of opening it up. If I open it up off center, that difference is going to compound quite a bit by the time I get the height I'm after. And I will send all you guys this video if you want it, so you can study it at home and see what nuances you're missing. There was this phenomena when I started teaching. I actually didn't know at that point my body had learned what it was doing, that it didn't need my brain anymore. If that makes sense, unless something was unexpected. My body was on autopilot. It knew what to do. I don't have to think. So when I started teaching, in order to teach, I actually had to do it, but consciously observe myself so that I could say, oh, that's what I'm doing. And because of that, sometimes that still happens. I can be making something for a demo and somebody will ask, well, how'd you do this part? And I won't realize what I just did. You know what I mean? So when you're making something big, you're gonna notice a lot of clay is gonna wanna come off on your fingers. There's another technique. You can use the sponge to hold against here instead of your fingertips. You can also make this kind of a shape with your knuckle and get in on the outside here. It's actually a very strong shape. I'm going a little fast. But then I don't take off quite as much clay off the outside when I do that. So, now right now it doesn't look much different than the average cylinder, but this pull is really going to change the shape because I'm following that angle all the way out. And it's gonna start out gradual where it's kind of standing up more on the big ones so that I'd have time to work the thickness how I want it. Once I have everything the thickness that I want, then I can work on the shape. So I would actually prefer to belly this out a little. I'm going to support on the outside and push from the inside against my hand so that I can belly that out without collapsing it. And then I need to compress the rim. And there are some things that I would refine further. I would get out my rib if I wasn't trying to be a purist, which I'm not, by the way. I was being lazy is what I was being. That is pretty much the difference between throwing the bowl versus the cylinder.